grade do you give to the entire approach to the offseason by a team that was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago?
I mean, I don't even know what grade. Like, the 49ers made no sense in the offseason. Like, the Trey Lance pick, it could work out. But it also felt, like you said in the previous segment, they were just trying to make up for past mistakes. I would say a C-. C- feels about right. And I still think, I think Kyle Shanahan's one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think the 49ers still have a roster that can win games. But it does feel like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Trey Lance needs a little work. Jimmy Garoppolo, they have not, let's just say this, they have not exactly given Jimmy Garoppolo a vote of confidence, right? So you have a quarterback now who it's clear the coaching staff and the front office don't want to be playing quarterback. And you have a quarterback who is, by all accounts, extremely raw and needs a lot of work. It just doesn't really make sense to me. So I might even go deep. No, I'll stay with C-. C-.
And the quarterback they drafted played one game last year because of the pandemic. North Dakota State played all of one game. He's going to sit out, ideally, all of this year if it goes according to plan. And, of course, if the team ends up being good, if they would get back to the Super Bowl, how do you not keep Jimmy Garoppolo next year? And maybe the master plan is they would sell high at that point. They would trade Garoppolo as he enters the final year of his contract. Because it's funny, we have such a short memory in the NFL and as we follow it. 2019, Garoppolo plays every game. Not an issue. No injury problems at all. 2020, he gets a sprained ankle week 2. He's, I think out for 10 of the 16 games. Oh, the guy can't stay healthy. Well, if he plays the entire year and they're really good and he does well, the narrative changes completely. And there's going to be somebody, I think, who would trade for him then, whereas now I don't think there's anyone who would touch him at $25 million after what happened last year. So, I suspect they have a plan. I hope they have a plan. But what we've seen of it and what we've heard of it, I agree with you. C, C-. I think that's a fair grade to apply to whatever the 49ers are doing, whether they know what they're doing or not. How about the Rams? The Rams gave us the first big, oh, wow, of 2021 when they made the move both to acquire Matthew Stafford and to unload that horrific Jared Goff contract that people were trying to tell them 2 years ago, don't do it, and they did it anyway.
Now, not a horrific contract. Jared Goff's a very good player and a very good friend of mine. So what is the courtroom term? What do you say?
Wait a minute.
You
were the guy, you were the one who planted the idea in my brain 2 years ago that the Rams should be the first team to say to a quarterback who just happened to hang around, no, we're not going to give you a giant contract. That was you.
Yeah, no, I still think they should have done that. I think Jared would have done that too. That was my point, is that if you're a guy who maybe isn't one of the best quarterbacks, I'm not saying Jared's one of the best quarterbacks, I'm saying great guy, great quarterback, still has a lot. He went to a Super Bowl, so check yourself, Mike Florio. All I was saying is that if I were in his shoes or a similar spot, I'd be like, hey, let me try to take the right amount of money where we can just keep building around me. I don't know. I'm really just talking out of my ass right now in the fact that I'm looking at it from a perspective of I'd maybe take a little less money so that I could have really good players around me. But in reality, I'd probably just take max money because that's what everyone really does. And I never begrudge anyone for doing that.
Here's the bottom line. The Rams, and I talked to a GM about this right after the trade happened. You get Stafford from the Lions, and you send Goff plus 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. That's your package to get Stafford. And the GM and I who had the conversation came to the consensus that the Rams got Stafford for a 1 and a 3, and the Rams sent a first-round pick with Goff, a Brock Osweiler-type trade, to get Goff's contract off the books. That this is basically Brock Osweiler tucked inside another transaction so Stan Kroenke doesn't figure out that the contract that they gave to Goff was so bad they had to give up a first-round pick to get it off the books. That's the thinking.
All right. I still think, whatever. I think Jared's good. I think the Lions, I think he'll have a little resurgence here. For the Rams, we're talking about the Rams here. The Rams.
Give me a grade for the Rams.
I mean, I think they get like a B+ or A- just because they saw, like, if you're Sean McVay, you have Aaron Donald, who and Jalen Ramsey and that defense and what they did last year, and they were really good. They were really, really good, especially at the end of the year. And you're like, hey, if I can have my guy, and I think Matt Stafford's the guy, and I'm on the train of Matt Stafford, future Hall of Famer. That's how I refer to him. I think that they went and addressed the one need, and it's kind of chips all in, which they've been chips all in for a while now because of their salary cap situation. But I like their offseason. I think that it really is an offseason where if you have one thing you want to do and you accomplish that one thing and it's bigger than everything else, I think it gets a good grade from me.
Yeah, well, and they had that one thing that they wanted to do because Sean McVay got to the point where he couldn't coexist with Jared Goff.
All right, enough with the Jared Goff.
When did you get co-opted by Jared Goff?
He's a friend of mine.
At least get co-opted by a good quarterback.
Wow, see, that was out of line. Out of line. Objection, Your Honor. This man is a terrible lawyer. Hey, at least I wear my bias on the sleeve. No, it's not new.
Did Blake Bortles broker this friendship? Is that what happened?
Blake and I are in a rocky spot right now because he's on the Packers. So we'll see what happens.
He's not going to be for long. He's going to be gone the day that Aaron Rodgers shows up.
Would you stop?
All right.
You don't have a friend of your you had to get a dog to get a friend. That's what you're doing right now.
And even then it's questionable. You know my quote about friendship. I think friendship takes too much effort. It's so much easier to maintain an enemy. All right, Indianapolis Colts, give me a grade.
All right, so the Colts are weird to me. I would probably go with a B- because I do think that Carson Wentz, this will be interesting. I think Frank Reich can get more out of him. I do think that this will be new place. I'm of the belief that if a guy was as good as he was a few years ago, and people kind of forget it because they won the Super Bowl without him, but he was leading the MVP candidacy when he got hurt in that game against the Rams a few years ago. I think it's still there. The reason why I don't give them, what did I just say? Did I give them a B-? The reason why I wouldn't go higher is I don't know what they're doing. They didn't really replace their offensive line. They don't really have a fix with Costanzo retiring, and they brought in Eric Fisher, who probably won't be ready week one, who's, a great career, but he's at the tail end of it. They got a backup who's coming into the starting role. I think that if you go get Carson Wentz, you then need to do everything to make Carson Wentz, elevate him to a level where his offensive line's great, where his weapons are great. I don't think they got all the way there. So I'm going to give him a B-.
But even with Costanzo retiring and the question marks with Fisher's health, it's a better offensive line than what he's had in Philadelphia, all due respect to the Eagles. He had nothing around him last year, and that's what was weird. Well, no, last year it was 2019. That's what made last year so odd. 2019, he literally had nothing down the stretch. He willed that team to the playoffs by himself when it was only 6 teams, when they didn't have the Chicago Bears Memorial 8-8 playoff spot. They earned one of the 6 spots in the NFC somehow. That's what made last year's fall from grace so stunning, because you think, hey, well, as long as Wentz stays healthy, this team's good to go. But something snapped. And the simple explanation may be they drafted Jalen Hurts in round 2, and it broke his brain. Jay Glazer essentially reported that during the season, that he did not react well to it. And that ended up being the thing that destroyed the relationship, and we saw it play out week after week last season.
Yeah, so I don't know. Carson Wentz.
It wasn't supposed to be about the Eagles, but I'm just trying to make sense of all of it. I just think he's got a good situation in Indianapolis, and he needed a fresh start. And I think for the Colts, look at what they've been trying to do since Andrew Luck decided he was done a couple of years ago. They have Phillip Rivers, and he got them to the playoffs, and they gave the Bills everything they could handle. I think Carson Wentz better than Phillip Rivers. I think this is a team that really is a force potentially to be reckoned with. I'm surprised you only gave him a B-.
All right, bump him up to a B. Let's go B.
All right, we'll give him a B.
Because you know what it is, Mike? You know what it is? I actually believe that Carson Wentz can be good, but man, was he bad. That sentence, put that in the book.
So he's not a friend. He's not a friend?
No, but he was so bad. He was so bad. And that's more gambling coming out, where I had some games where I was like, why did I do this? Why did I have Carson Wentz? He spins. No one likes to spin for no reason more than Carson Wentz. The guy just is addicted to spinning just to waste time in the pocket.
Tennessee Titans, they most recently made noise with the trade for Julio Jones. They trying to make the defense better. They're taking a flyer with Bud Dupree, giving him a lot of money coming off of his ACL tear. What offseason grade do you give them?
So I'm going to give him like a B. And I like the Julio Jones. I'm surprised more teams weren't in on that. That seemed ridiculous to me. I know that if he plays well, they're going to have to give him more money and all that. But that offense is ready to go. I don't know what they're doing on defense. I think Bud Dupree is a guy who was really good in Pittsburgh, but that's because Pittsburgh played to his strengths and knew how to use him. Now he's going to go to Tennessee. He's going to be expecting to perform right away. The deal with the Titans last year, it was their defense. They had the worst third down defense in the NFL. They could not get off the field. Anytime they got in a big situation, it fell apart. And then, they lost some secondary. They bring in Janoris Jenkins, who's on the wrong side of 30, and they draft Caleb Farley, who is a top-level talent, but isn't he back surgery? Back surgery. Right. Look, I hope he has a great career. I hope he has a long career. But if you're 22 years old or 21 years old and you're getting back surgery, I'm going to throw up a red flag. I think that's totally fair. So I just don't know if they did enough on defense. I think their offense will keep them in a lot of games. And then when we get down to January football, when they have to get off the field in third down, it might not happen. They got to re-sign Will Compton. That's what they got to do.
And when you look at that division, it really is Colts and Titans clearly above the other two, without question. And I think whoever emerges from that, you could have a team, and we see this all the year. Teams get better or worse as the season goes on. You could have one of these two teams, Colts or Titans, it really develops into something special as the season unfolds. Confidence creates more confidence, and by the time you get into the postseason, you're ready to try to climb to the top of the mountain. The Patriots trying to get back to the top of the mountain after missing the playoffs last year with a 7-9 record. And look, even though they were 7-9, you look at them, you think they were 3-13 with the talent they didn't have. They went out and they were aggressive this year. What grade do you give from the aggressive acquiring of free agents to what they did in the draft? Give me a grade for the Patriots.
I think they get like an A-. They went and got a lot of talent, and obviously they had a lot of cap space. And they're also getting a bunch of guys back that opted out. But I like what they did with the tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. So they're going to, try to do the tight end thing that eventually, basically the Patriots not invented, but that was, the first iteration of it. So they're going to get back there. They got some wide receiver talent. I actually would say the only move that I don't really like and agree with is bringing back Cam Newton. Because he was that bad. And it wasn't like an injury thing to me. He was just bad. He was just straight up bad. So if you're going to draft a quarterback and you're also going to have a roster that should be able to compete for a playoff spot, I don't know why I'd waste time having Cam Newton be your quarterback for any amount of weeks.
They got him on a really good deal, not as good as last year. Last year, he showed up in late June. They really like him. They like his presence. They like his leadership. They regard him as the perfect guy to follow Tom Brady in New England. He's got the magnetic personality. He brings the locker room together. And I think the COVID diagnosis last year messed him up. He denied that he had brain fog in the aftermath of having COVID. But that thing that came out of the blue after week 3, he missed that Monday night game against the Chiefs. But they actually gave the Chiefs a pretty good scare with Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham. But I don't think Newton was ever the same after that. I think it took him a while to come out of it. And now year two in the system, I think he's going to be better than he was last year. The question is, how good will he be? And he didn't have any weapons around him last year.
I still just it just doesn't look right. I don't think I think the amount of injuries that he has had, his throwing motion has just looked bad ever since the shoulder and the foot. The foot was actually something that I think affected him more than people realize. If you look at where he can throw the ball around the field now and what he feels comfortable doing, planting that foot. These stats are skewed though, Mike. They played in that game, which was a thriller, that Sunday Night Football game in Seattle. Remember how bad Seattle's defense was? They were historically bad. So that was a shootout. That was a game that got away from them. those stats to me are inflated, where that game was again, it was the exception, not the rule, to how that season was going to go. I don't know. I think that the Patriots would be hurting themselves if they tried to force Cam Newton into this role for an extended period of time this year, because I don't see it. You know, and again, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I do truly believe this, because I actually think Cam Newton might be, for my money, the most electric college football player of all time. He won an MVP. He's had a great career. I just don't see it anymore.
And look, Bill Belichick won't hesitate to remove him from the lineup if he thinks it's in the team's best interest. He did it a couple of times last year with Jarrett Stidham. Cam Newton takes it. I think Cam Newton is at a point in his career where he will do whatever the greatest coach of all time, arguably in any sport, tells him to do. He's not going to get salty. He's not going to pout if he gets removed from a game. And we'll find out what Mac Jones has. 15th overall pick, fell to the Patriots, and could get interesting.
What did I give him? A-?
You gave him an A-.
All right, yeah, that's fair. All right. Good draft by me. Good job by me.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.